Hi, this is a video for the Generative Design and the Wider Realm coursework, and I'm going to go over how I designed this VR headset, which is bespoke fitted to my head and my phone, which is a Galaxy S8. So to start with, I thought I'd reuse a lens that's already available on the market, which is the lenses from Google Cardboard. There are a couple of generations of these, so I used the ones that we had available to us, which are the 25mm lenses. So I created this just from the dimensions that are available on Google's website. See, it's a lens with two different kind of focal points. And then obviously we've got two eyes, so I duplicated them. Got two lenses. And then I thought I might as well start with the alignment straight away. So I imported a canvas of my face. And then I used the calibrate tool in Fusion 360 to calibrate the distance between my pupils, which I measured on myself using some calipers. So that turned out to be 70mm. So you can see my lenses line up with my eyeballs. I also calibrated the distance away I used from the origin. So I set this distance to 18mm, which is the distance that the Google Cardboard lenses require to be away from your pupils. So I thought I'd set that as a kind of a base feature that's always going to be the right size. So the next part of my thought process was I'm going to design this for my phone. The VR headsets for computers tend to be really expensive, and I'm quite a fan of keeping things simple. So I modelled up my phone, which is currently a Galaxy S8. And then made sure the distance away from the focal point of the lens to the phone is 45mm, which is again the specification of the Google lenses. And you can see these are calibrated, so they are equally spaced on the phone. So that is as close as the phone can get to your eyes, and it's still be in focus. So that will determine kind of the overall size of the VR headset. I want to keep things as compact as possible because I've used VR in the past and it can get quite bulky and heavy. So I want to try to minimize that as much as possible. So the next step in my design was designing something to hold the lenses. I decided to go for removable lenses. So you can quick change the lenses. Anyone who wears glasses will tell you how annoying it is when you've got a little bit of grease or dirt on your lens. You can never quite get it clean without taking your glasses off, or in this case, taking your lenses completely out. So for this, I decided to design a structure with threaded mounts. So on their own like this, they wouldn't hold the lenses in, but I designed some rings that have the screw thread on the inside. They clamp down on the lens and they'll hold it in, and also allow you to take it out, clean it, or replace the lenses if they get damaged. You can also see on this, this kind of contour for my face was drawn from the same canvas that I aligned my eyes with. So you can see here where I've outlined my nose to create a comfortable pair of glasses essentially. This outline around the side was designed just to give you a good seal around the glasses. It encloses the whole phone, and it's to stop any light getting in, which will reflect off the lenses. Let the light get out from the VR headset and just kind of deteriorate the experience as a whole. So the other side of this piece that I designed to hold the lenses, it's basically kept as simple as possible. Ideally, I wanted this to be able to be 3D printed, so anyone with an FDM printer at home can print these. So the basic design is a little bit of space for your nose. I have quite a large nose, so I added a cutout here. This wall's as thin as possible. Basically, you don't want to be looking through a tunnel. You want to have a nice open viewpoint, so that the lens is as close to the front of this wall as possible. And you can see there's two little shelves here. These are literally to hold the phone in place. So if I bring the phone in now, you can see you've got a nice cutout for your phone. You can also see I've made a cutout in the side for your charging port and your headphone jack. A lot of VR users tend to use headphones while they're doing it. Just increases the immersion. And the charging cable is for a feature I added in the back. I had an idea that you could incorporate a battery pack into the VR headset, so you can extend your play time or your video watch time, whatever you're doing with it. I just thought it'd be a good user improvement, and also it would act as a counterweight. A problem with a lot of VR headsets you'll find is the front with the screens and the displays is very heavy, and the back often isn't. So you'll find it trying to roll off your head. So I thought if I added some weight at the back with a battery pack, that would counteract that. But you'll see that further in the design process. So now we can see we've got our lens holder, we've got the phone mount, we've got the lenses set the appropriate distance from my face, but solid plastic isn't very comfortable on your face. Doesn't provide a very good seal. It won't shoot out any light. So what I did is I imported a side profile picture of my face. This is also calibrated, so it's to scale, and you can see kind of the interaction with the nose cutout there, how I made it, just the right size for my nose. That can be edited to make it bigger or smaller. And then the next thing I added was a rubber piece that I envision you can glue onto this plastic ledge here, and this goes around the side of your head to seal out the light. And again, this is completely bespoke to the shape of my face. You can see it kind of follows the contours. And this can be edited for anyone. The top contour, I took a picture of the top of my head, and then again trace the contours of my head, and use that to trim the rubber molding piece. So kind of the idea here was I can, this bit is standard, whereas the silicone piece can be made bespoke to anyone who needs it. There's no reason this wouldn't fit most people. I have a pretty normal looking head, but this piece is you can totally make this bespoke to whatever you need. So the next part of the design process was how am I going to hold the phone into the headset. There's so many different complicated ways you could do this. You could have a hinge mechanism, a sprung door, and any kind of clasp mechanism. I decided to keep it as simple as possible so that anyone could make this at home with a 3D printer and some like really basic hardware. So essentially what I did is I took this shape that I'd created from the outline of the phone and just offset it slightly. So there's a very small gap around the phone that allows for your lock buttons and your volume buttons. And then this is just a 3mm wall. What I did then is I created a front piece. Again, same contour. I added these are randomized diamond patterns. It looked a bit boring, but that's essentially the truth with just a plain front piece. So, and these are all 45-degree angles, so they won't impact printing at all, whichever direction you have it orientated on your bed. So if I hide the phone and the mount now, you'll be able to see. I'll just hide the lenses. If you can see here, there's an indentation in the back of this. I decided to use some craft foam. So this is a piece of cut down foam, and that is actually sized very slightly smaller than the foam. Very slightly larger than the gap the phone sits in, because the foam will compress and it will give you a nice mounting tension with the phone against the mount that I've created, just to keep it nice and snug in there. You don't want it rattling around. You also see I've added a cutout there. It's kind of a quirk towards the S8. They have a touch sensor on the back, and the camera is obviously a normal feature, but rather than having to add buttons inside that will press the screen, as some other cardboard headsets have, I've got the benefit of having a sensor on the outside. So having a hole in this front mounting plate lets me just tap the sensor to go onto the next scene or interact with whatever kind of program I'm using, and leaving the camera freed up. It kind of opens it up to any kind of use in like augmented reality systems or any virtual reality systems that use the camera to orientate itself. So now if I bring in the frame mount and the eye relief, you'll see we've got what's starting to look like a VR headset. And then again, you've got the little gap on the side for your charging cables. All of these little rounded edges just to make the renders look more realistic. I find if you have sharp edges, it looks like a computer generated image, so I rolled all these edges over very slightly just for the sake of making it look more realistic. These rolled over edges will happen if something's being injection molded. 3D printing, you wouldn't bother with these, they'd just be straight edges. But yeah, and you can see I've added some little pegs across each corner. My idea was you can use some simple O-rings, the kind that you can get from a hardware shop for plumbing, they're like super cheap, they're pennies, and they're elastic bands essentially, but they come in a lot of different sizes. So I modelled up some elastic bands, and you'll see they'll clamp over the corners to keep the front piece on. You can use shorter or longer ones to kind of vary the pressure, or if you have a thicker foam, maybe with a case on the back. But there should be enough clamping pressure there to keep the phone in the headset, along with the foam as well, keeping the pressure on. So essentially that's the front piece done. So now I had essentially the VR headset part of the design completed. I needed a way to hold it to my face, onto my head. So again, I used the same overhead shot that I used to shape the seal piece from the front of the head, and then I created a counterbalance kind of rear piece at the back. I ignored the bunched up bit of beanie on the photo because I knew that's where the back of my head was. But again, I used this curve is from the curve of my head. It kind of follows through here. So I created that little piece that will go at the back of my head. I also envisioned this is where a battery pack would go. So there's 3 slots in here. They take 18350 lithium ion cells that I got off GrabCAD. And then there's some little screw tops. It's a super simple design. And then you can see there's a USB-C port sticking out the side there for a cable, but we'll come on to that later. So now I had a front and a back. I essentially had to join up 2 mounts that I made with straps. So I decided to use elastic webbing. It's cheap, it comes in a load of different sizes, and it's super easy to join together. You can melt it together or sew it together, stitch it. Just get rid of the canvas so you can see it a little better. So you can see there's just a double length of elastic, loops around, and then to hold these in place, I created a couple of pins. I'll make all the pins visible. And these pins, purely aesthetic. There's no reason I couldn't use bolts, and I probably will upload a version to Thingiverse for people that uses just regular M3 bolts. But for a showcase piece, I thought I'd make it a bit nice. So these pins, you can see they screw together in the middle. They're just simple M3 threaded rods with a nice little polished cap on the end. I put one of them in every mount on the thing. Got 3 at the back, 3 at the front, and then I used the same overhead shot to create a strap for the other side. That was literally a mirror image of the left side. And then again, I used the canvas of the side profile of my face to create a strap that would go over the top of my head and join up the top mount on this to the top mount on the back. So we have a strap there. See, I did follow the contours of my head, again ignoring the beanie hat. And then we have what looks like a VR headset. So there's a few little things that I added just to make it a bit more of a complete package. I added a USB-C cable that goes from the charger to the headset. The user could use any USB-C cable. I added a little extra bit of strapping to go over the cable and wrap up any excess that there is. But that was essentially it. The whole design was derived from the shape of my face and the shape of the phone and the specifications of the lenses. Everything else was from experience. So the battery pack at the back, extending your battery life, VR is pretty battery intensive. So having an extra, these batteries can hold, for 6,000 milliamp hours. So it's like having an extra phone battery attached to your headset. And the weight of that will stop it rolling off your head as much as any other VR system. The elastics, you can easily add adjustable mechanisms. You could use webbing, you could use nylon straps. It's really open to use whatever you've got to hand really for the mounts. And again, these pins can quite easily be reworked, so just be M3 bolts and nuts on either side, or a threaded rod, or a bent bit of wire, whatever's on hand really. And that was the whole idea, to make it accessible to people who wouldn't normally be able to use VR. There is a nice section on the back for branding. I've used my logo there. You could use you could make this customizable, so people could put the name on there, or you could, if you sold this design to someone, people can put their own logos on it. But that is essentially the completed design from a VR headset. So the final part of the design process was getting some nice renders, so I can show off the design work. I have a particular favourite render environment, which is this photo booth setup. This was downloaded off the internet, and it is fantastic. You seem to get a really good representation of the colours and the materials without having excess shadows or too much glare. It's kind of representative of the actual photo studio. So we had to create 4 renders of the overall products and 2 of specific features. So I created some named views, which are basically ways of remembering angles on Fusion. So the first named view I had was the shot of this. So you get a shot of the USB-C cable kind of snaking its way through the front panel. Nice overall shot. The second angle I chose, essentially the same shot, but with the camera and the sensors kind of peeking through the front plate. The third angle I chose was to show off the battery pack connection and the branding on the backwood. And the final angle I chose was to show off, basically just to highlight the refraction coming through the lenses on the VR headset. The model of the Galaxy phone I made, I used an emissive OLED material which is built into Fusion, which will give you the impression of having an actual screen in there, and the light will be refracted naturally as it would do through an actual lens on the renders. The features I wanted to show off were the mounting system for the front of my phone. So I actually created new geometry for that. So if I get rid of the front pieces of the case and the O-ring bands and the model of my phone, I wanted to show off the way that was mounted. So I actually created a separate component here, which kind of shows it all laid out. So you've got your O-rings, your phone, the foam inset, and the USB-C cable. I thought that would be a nice feature to show off. The next, final feature I chose to show off was the quick change lens mechanism. So again, I created a separate component to have a lens and a lens cap, just kind of sat on the photo booth floor, as it were. And again, on these, I took off the parts that are actually on the VR headset, just to save ruining any kind of orientation or relationships between the parts. So I created a completely separate component just for renders, which is this component here. You see it kind of contains everything. And I thought that would show off the nice quick change lens feature for cleaning or replacement. So thank you for watching my video. That was the design process on my VR headset. These are the renders that I came up with at the end. Feel free to pause and have a look at them. Thank you for watching.